Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, coming to you from Richmond, Virginia. The Dukes are 8-2 after winning at ODU, 3-0 now in the official Royal Rivalry, a 35-32 game for the ages in this great rivalry between these two Virginia schools. We're going to get to a robust discussion about everything that happened yesterday on a great day in Norfolk, Virginia. Great JMU crowd made the trip. That was something we talked about last week. We wanted to see a sea of purple at that stadium yesterday. You delivered in a big way, and it made a difference because you could hear from the sidelines the impact that the JMU faithful made yesterday in Norfolk. So good on everyone that made the trip. And this is a huge win for the Dukes because those Virginia schools, those games against Virginia teams matter so much more. The Dukes now 20 consecutive wins against schools from the state of Virginia. That's a big, big statistic that is impossible to overstate. So again, we'll get to all that. We're also going to have a conversation tonight in our Montpelier Collective Athlete Spotlight with Joe Showker. We're going to talk about some exciting news from the Montpelier Collective about the F-Lot version of our Champions Drive Bourbon. Again, every one of those bottles that is sold goes directly to support student athletes on campus at James Madison University. So we're going to discuss that. And then we're going to look ahead to this week's monster matchup against App State. Every time we get on the field with App State, it's a big game, usually goes down to the final play. And we're expecting nothing different as JMU makes a trip down to Boone. Could be some snow in the forecast for that game. So we'll get to all of that. As always, want to talk about our sponsors, the Montpelier Collective, as we mentioned, a big week for the collective as we continue to try to do everything in our capacity to raise additional funds to support our coaches on campus. The portal opening up in December. This is a really important time for the collective, and we hope that Champions Drive is a big part of helping us bring some additional resources in as we approach the end of the year. It's a perfect holiday gift for the Duke in your life. Also want to give a shout out to Where's Woody, as we've mentioned on all of our episodes. If you're doing your holiday shopping, a great JMU owned business that's got some great JMU merchandise, again, that also goes to support student athletes on campus. Where'swoody.com. Shout out to Talent Corps. YourPurpleNation.com. As we always mention, they have stores in Richmond as well as Northern Virginia and Virginia Beach. This is the busy season for Your Purple Nation. Carol Benassi and the team to get all your great JMU gear. And then finally, Showker Enterprises. So grateful for what Joe has done this year. Not only his efforts to support JMU athletics, but what he's done to support people in North Carolina. We'll mention that as well when we have our conversation with Joe. But with that, we're going to get to the other members of our Sound Off team, Michael Evangelista, Steve Brown, and Taylor Atkins. Michael, I'm going to come to you first. You're in the state of Florida. You got to watch the game on TV yesterday, different vantage point. Your headline from yesterday's game.
Yeah, like you said, I'm down in Florida for our Thanksgiving trip. We're going to be down here for a couple of weeks. Also going to do a little recruiting, see if we get some speed on the outside for JMU football. We'll see. But this one felt really good. Another close one versus Old Dominion. I expect it's going to be this way year over year. Last year we won 30-27. This year another 3-point game, 35-32. I think we need to win more convincingly, but I know overall super proud to beat ODU in Norfolk in front of their recruits, and also to go 3-0 since we've gone FBS. It's always a good feeling. Big fan of the second half adjustments. We did a really good job stopping that dive play, which is super critical to them. They ran that play the entire first half. We held strong to the run game, which was fantastic on offense. I think we had a season high 234 yards on the ground, which is phenomenal. And lastly, I hate to give ODU their props, but the atmosphere looked great on TV. You can tell that this means a lot for both programs, for the state of Virginia. It was good for the universities, good for the programs overall. It's good for college football, right? This is what college football is all about. 137 miles, 170 miles splits is between the two schools. So it was phenomenal. Great Saturday overall for JMU.
Taylor, had a chance to see you yesterday in the stands with your family. And this game always means a little bit more for you because you're connective tissue to ODU. We're not calling you a closeted ODU fan. No criticism there. But this was special. It was a great atmosphere, and it was great to see you. What was your takeaway from this version of it? As every game has been different, the last two have really lived up to the hype around this matchup that we always kind of thought it would be. As again, games going down to the final minutes and the last plays of the game really mattering.
Yeah, I mean this was the one that I think you go back 2 years ago. I think we were fairly favored in that game, and but it was still a lot to go down there and beat them after the 2 games in FCS. And then the game last year, I don't think we expected much of a game, and it became a very close game at the very end that we were very lucky to win. And then this game is the one I didn't expect a blowout either way. I don't think a blowout would have surprised me either way, but it was kind of one of those things where there's a mutual level of respect that Old Dominion had. And, it was another classic. And again, this is why we're in the Sun Belt for games like this.
Absolutely. And Steve, had a chance to drive down with you and our producer Chandler. You were on the sidelines for a good amount of the game, and you just saw kind of the ebbs and flows of this matchup. We start off strong. The momentum shifts after the block punt, but then second half adjustments really were key to this victory. Your headline from yesterday.
Well, my good friend Justin Timberlake has a song out there called "I'm Bringing Sexy Back." We're bringing road swagger back. That's what we saw yesterday. Played through the whistle. We had all the energy the entire game. So whenever they had their light show going on, our guys were jumping up and down. Our guys were loose, played well, loved what they did. We imposed our will on them, and especially in the second half. Second half adjustments were great. I know Coach Chesney's like, the score doesn't matter at the half, and whatever he says. It's the most meaningless stat, whatever it is. But whatever they did in the locker room, the fact they didn't come out until 2 minutes before we kicked, around 2 to 3 minutes, that told me they were locked in. And you saw it. And the onside kick at the very beginning, I cringed as it was going on. And then as we thought about it driving back, it's like, that's a really big FU right in the face. We're going to onside kick it. We don't care if you get it to the 50-yard line because you're not going to do anything with it. And in fact, when they didn't, I think that broke them. That might have been the play of the game. I don't know. That could have been the play of the game. It was an interesting call, but we're on a roll. And I like us winning a close game. It's the first close game that we won this year. And last year we won like 3 or 4 of them. So it's kind of nice for us to be in one of those dogfights. So brought our road swagger back, baby. I'm hearing Justin Timberlake in my headphones right now.
I have to say, if there had been a bingo card before this of what I did not expect to hear tonight was Steve Brown quoting Justin Timberlake, I also want to be on record saying that's awesome, and it makes me like you even more than I do before this. So shout out to that. Steve's bringing road game swagger back. My headline is I like LED lights. They're amazing, and they should be everywhere. It's awesome in your house for the holidays. They're even better in a football stadium. I have a feeling they're coming to Bridgeforth in the near future at some point. It just seems like it's too cool to happen. But with that, we're going to bring on head coach Mickey Matthews. Mickey, I know you were watching yesterday's game, and something you said last week in the lead up, you really, for me at least, captured just how much this game mattered, not only to the players and the coaches who are currently on the roster, but to all of us who have purple in our blood. This was personal for you. Kind of your headline from yesterday's matchup and why that victory was so special to you.
Well, I thought it was a great win. I know how hard it is down there. We were talking here pre-show that we had a great crowd there, and that really helps. And I want to say thank you to all the JMU faithful who showed up in that stadium, because believe me, the kids are aware of that during the game, and the ODU kids are aware of that. So I thought it was tremendous, and I think it's a great rivalry between the two schools. You're going to recruit against. I'm sure after the game that the two head coaches knew many of the kids on the other team and spoke with them, even if they were transfers, because the recruiting is so intense between the two universities, the two programs. And it's always going to be close. That's when we used to play Richmond and all those games. The other side, if one side gets behind, the other side is going to catch up. They're always going to be close. And I think it's terrific. But I tell you what, I want us to play well on the road. We had not played well on the road. Monroe beat us, and I think they've won 1 game since. They're not a very good football team. We didn't play good down there. We did not play good at Georgia Southern. I'm not sure what their record, but it hasn't been very good since we lost to them. So we needed to go on the road and play well. We needed to go on the road again, in a conference game. And I thought Old Dominion, of course I keep up with them. What do they say? Know your friends well and your enemies better. And Old Dominion is an enemy of mine. So I keep up with them really close. And they have really improved this year as a football team. They've really snake bit. They've lost a lot of close games. But I'm not sure that was the best football team we played this year other than North Carolina. I mean, that was a good team we beat yesterday. And playing at home, it was terrific. And I just wanted us to play well. The two plays that won us the game were their two pass drops in the fourth quarter. I mean, they were huge. I mean, would they have won the game if they had caught those two passes? I can't answer that. I know it would definitely probably put them ahead, and we would have had to go down to score at the end of the game to win the game, because those two pass drops, we had a little formula we got from Ralph Region in Maryland about how many times if you have more than one pass drop in a game, you should lose the game. And that's what happened to Old Dominion. Those were critical drops by them. We survived a punt block. 80% of the time when you get a punt block, you're going to lose the game. That was huge. We dominated the game in times of possession. We had it for 38 minutes, and they had it for 22 minutes. It was a field position nightmare for us in the second half. I wrote this down. These are where we started our drives in the second half. This is the formula for getting beat. We started at our 2, our 9, 14-yard line, 18, 23, and 29. 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose when that's where your field position is everything in a football game. Some of these young guys that are coaching don't realize that, but that will never change. Field position.
Mickey, you have something else to say?
I'm sorry. No. Go ahead. Ask me a question.
I wanted to jump on what you were kind of talking about, just what it meant for this program. And pre-show, you were even talking about how, the Old Dominion job is always going to be one of the better coaching jobs in the Sun Belt, the location.
Great job.
But so talk a little bit about, that atmosphere last night. 2 in-state schools that, year after year, probably going to be the two top G5 schools in Virginia. What did that mean for recruiting, especially since JMU can go now go on the road and say, we're 3-0 against those guys in our FBS era?
I don't think that's big. I've always I know the kids that are at the game, the recruits, they want to know what they're not emotionally connected to the game. They don't care if you win or lose. All they want to know is a great atmosphere and are the girls pretty. You know what I mean? I mean, that's all they worried about. And is everybody nice to them? And the girls pretty? And what color our helmet are? I don't know if that affects it too much. I think sometimes when you see a certain football team do some things, maybe that appeals to you, like a receiver's throwing the ball or whatever it is. But I don't know if that's – I just think the atmosphere, like yesterday, it was great for a recruit to be there that's considering us because we had so many fans there based on what y'all told me.
Right.
They notice stuff like that. And that's big. But the Old Dominion job is a great football job. Let me tell you, you're sitting in a major metropolitan area, and they do not have any pro sports down there. I mean, you're the biggest thing in town, and with 3 million people down there, whatever it is, you're the one. You're the only Division I program there, so that's very appealing. You're going to have all the interest in you. You don't have to share it. Georgia Tech has to share it with the Falcons and go right through Pittsburgh and all of them. But down there, you do not. That's why it's a good job. There's no doubt. And you've got a lot of really great prospects that live within 30, 45 minutes of campus.
Coach, one of my favorite quotes from you when you were the head coach at James Madison was, as long as you were at JMU, we were going to be good at defense.
Yeah.
I love that quote from you. So let's talk a little bit about the second half adjustments on Saturday. I think we forced them to punt six times in a row. We sacked them 5 times, which matched, I think, what App State did to them 2 weeks beforehand. Talk about the second half adjustments, how important that was for JMU on Saturday.
Well, it's obvious the biggest adjustment you make at the half is one with your chin strap. That's how you get better on defense. And what they're doing we would always do this. Whatever the team was doing to move the ball, we were not going to allow them to do that. I was trained that way when I was a young coach back in Texas, that whatever they're doing in the first half, we're not going to allow them to do it in the second half. Now, they may do something else, and certainly they can. They pay their coaches. But we're not going to continue. I would tell my defensive staff at the half, we're not going to, one year we shut out Appalachian when we beat them in the great comeback game, whatever year that was, 7 or 8. We took the quarterback out of the game in the second half with an adjustment on our defense. And you do things like that. And that's what I think we're playing great on defense. I mentioned they had 2 drop passes, but Old Dominion's good on offense. They rush for. Had it written down. They rushed for 200 yards against us yesterday, and we had 28 yards in sacks. So I'm not sure whatever the final bottom line was on. They take that away from the rush total, but Old Dominion's good. Do not confuse that with they had good backs. The receivers were good. Quarterbacks getting better every week. But I thought we adjusted well. We continued to play. The biggest thing, we played hard. Dadgum, we played hard. I thought Sam's guys up front played well.
I was going to ask you about that, Coach, because I think they did a majority of their damage in the first half, but I felt I think we were pinching the D-line or something, because we stopped the dive, I think, starting in the third quarter, and that completely changed what ODU wanted to do. So I was curious if you noticed any of that.
Yeah. Of course, I haven't watched the film. That would change everything. I did rewatch it actually this morning when I got up to, of course, I was yelling at Sam this morning when we lost containment one time. Our defensive end went inside, and we lost containment. But I would say the number one thing we brought to the table Saturday is we played lots harder than we had at Monroe or Georgia Southern. It's obvious Bob had been reading my mail, because we just needed to. We did not play hard in those games. We really we had our pea hot now. Yesterday, as Steve said, he's over on the side. It doesn't surprise me. Our kids were getting play after play against a good team.
Well, let me ask you on a couple other things. So the one thing that Chesney said in the press conference, I don't know if you heard it. Dave Riggert asked him a question about Alonzo, and he said that Alonzo did the speech on Friday night to the team.
Good.
And that he's kind of grown now into this role. And last night seemed to me to be, this is now Alonzo's team. It felt like to me that he had that swagger and that this was his team. So I was going to ask you another question, is really what do you think they need to work on? What just, 1 or 2 things that you see? I know the defense is doing great. I thought his passing was really good last night, but what do you see that they may need to work on?
No, I think the biggest thing we're improving. If I were to talk to Bob tonight, which I'm not, but the once again, I used to tell, one thing I learned as a young coach, that good football teams improve. They play their best football in November. And I think we're playing our best right now. Some teams are not as good right now in November as they were in September. And that's a direct correlation of the coaching staff. You better be coaching hard in November and get their attention every day in practice. We're not going to have a walkthrough and we're not going to practice with our sunglasses on. We're gonna practice, and we're really, we had those long drives in the game, which was really good. Our third down conversions were good. We overcame that poor field position in the second half to win the game. But that's hard to do. Now, let me tell you, this is the thing, guys, when you're backed up inside your 10-yard line, the one thing you want to make at least one first down is your goal. I used to, because and the other team, when they're inside their 10-yard line and we've got them backed up, we do not want to allow a first down, because when they punt us the ball and we fair catch it out there about the 40-yard line, 45-yard line, that's just like we just recovered a fumble right there. That's a turnover. So when you're backed up offensively like we were, and we punched it out there 2 or 3 almost every time and made 2 or 3 first downs, that was huge in the ball game. Huge. I tell you, I thought our offensive line is the best game they'd played all year. I don't know about y'all thought, but I thought they really consistently through 4 quarters, we were blocking people. We were absolutely blocking people. And I thought the 2 backs, I'm not for sure, and it sounds terrible to say, but I think since those 2 other kids got hurt, and I couldn't tell you who the best ones are. I'm not that close to it, but these 2 kids are getting better every week because they're getting all the work.
Yeah.
One of them, a young kid's name Young.
Yeah, it's Ymir Knight.
Yep.
Knight. Sorry, Knight and Petaway, right?
Petaway.
Let me tell you, those 2 guys they played terrific last night. I mean, they played hard. They ran hard. I mean, they were hard to tackle. They finished their runs. They didn't run out of bounds. I was never big. I don't like guys run out of bounds. Those 2 guys are playing. Offensive line played well, and I think you're exactly right about Alonzo. I think he's getting better every week. There's no doubt about it. He's still missing a couple of throws, but so did Johnny Unitas. But he's good. I like where we are. Our team, but our kids played hard last night. That's a big. Bob really had them ready to go, and I used to tell him, you got to get those guys ready like somebody just peed in your cornflakes this morning. You got to be up. You got to be mad.
Well, that's the first night. That's the first night we've had Carter Sweezy back since ULM.
Yeah, we were mad. We were mad last. There's obvious watching the game. We were mad last night.
Yeah, that reminded me of somebody grabbing the back of your pants and pulling you back. They nobody did that last night, but they had that feel. It had the feel of that. It was good.
Yeah, I could do it. I probably would have a heart attack now if I did that. But I still yell at the TV screen here when we lost containment a couple of times. Late in the game, we lost containment. And I started yelling at Sam. But I'm sure Bob was too. But it's
Mickey,
a good game.
I want to ask you about one other thing that was so cool to see yesterday is that you had 2 brothers, both Ymir Knight and his brother, get touchdowns in the same game, and it was great to see them, Ymir and Wayne, both in the post-game press conference with the biggest smiles you've ever seen on 2 kids. Obviously, you have a history of having brothers on the team, obviously Tony and Matt. How special is that when you have such a strong family connection to have 2 players on the same field, both shining in a game like that? That just has to not only be special for that family unit, but you could tell how it resonated through the entire locker room and with the coaching staffs as well.
It's wonderful. We had the Lazat boys, which were terrific. They're still, I'm still close to those guys to this day. I'm close to all of them, really. But the Brown boys from Chesapeake, Marvin Brown, Ronell and Donnell, all 3 great players. I saw them at our Hall of Fame thing. And they're terrific. It's wonderful. And the way those guys would interact with the rest of the team, and everyone knew they were brothers and hanging out. It was great. Lazats, good stuff. It's terrific having brothers on a team.
So, Mickey, I did want to get a chance, since we have you as always, to get your thoughts on some other things happening in college football, kind of a little bit of a rapid fire session. Any surprises yesterday as we head towards the college football playoffs becoming more of a concrete understanding of who's going to be in those final positions? Obviously, JMU now in a much better position for the Sun Belt race now with Georgia Southern losing, giving them an opportunity, at least if Georgia Southern is to drop one more and JMU wins out for their chance in the Sun Belt. But what are you seeing from any surprises in the college football landscape? And then my second question with that is, how do you think strength of schedule will be taken into account as those decisions are made?
It's really interesting with this is the first time this has really happened. They've always talked about it in basketball when they get picked the top teams what is the RPI is what they call it. Yeah. And in football, we've never ever talked about because everyone's playing the same team. So it's really, you could complain about non-conference schedules, but as far as it was all the same. Well, now because the conferences have gotten so big, you can make a run like I would, and a good example, you asked me, Indiana, and I'm not sure how good Indiana is. I always call it James.
No wins over a bowl eligible team at this point. So
yeah, James Madison North Campus, and I'm not mad at Kurt at all. Kurt's a good friend.
You play the schedule you play. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got some Holy Cross transfers, so we need to hush up about all that. But I'm not sure what their record would be if they were in the SEC. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Notre Dame would be. Notre Dame's schedule is one of those, because I'm old. It's whoever they play the same people every year. Navy, Army, Stanford. They play all these independent teams. Well, I guess they're not. Some of them aren't independent anymore. So if those teams are really good, Notre Dame's playing a tough schedule. If those schools are struggling, they've got a really easy schedule. So Notre Dame, I'm not sure about there. So it'll be interesting what the committee does. You look at Ole Miss down here, though. They haven't played. They haven't played some good teams in the SEC. And of course, my second favorite team after the Dukes is the Bulldogs because of Kirby. Kirby played for me, and Georgia's had a really tough schedule, and they're so it's going to be interesting how the committee does that, and we need to keep their feet to the fire because there may be a team that's got one loss who doesn't deserve to go to the playoffs, and if someone has 3 losses, they're much more deserving, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of teams out there that haven't played a very tough schedule because they don't have to play everyone. The conferences have gotten so huge. If it falls just right, you can have a great schedule and kind of be a paper tiger a little bit.
Kudos to Kurt Signetti. Now $8 million richer as his contract got
extended.
Yeah,
I'm gonna call him and get a loan. There's no doubt.
There you go. He gave at least an extra set of golf clubs. One other thing I want to ask you, Mickey, is because we're seeing so much of it, and there was some talk yesterday. Would Bob go for it? Would he not go for it on the play where we got ODU to drawn off sides? They gave us a big first down. What is the driving force now? Is it analytics behind coaches that are so much more willing to not only go for it on fourth down, but we're seeing more fake punts than ever. We're seeing more 2-point conversion attempts. There just seems to be a lot more of a willingness to take risks in certain positions now with some of these younger coaches that are getting into the game. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
It's a really great question because they've forgotten how important field position is. And of course, everyone at James Madison remembers the Appalachian game, and I went for it on fourth down. But we did it that we told the kids the night before the game we were going to do it. And I think we were 5 out of 6 that day against Appalachian. We didn't make the 6th one. That's all anybody remembers. But we never did it much because I was just such a field position nut. That's the way I was raised. But there's a lot of young coaches. I'll tell you a great story. Do I have time for a story, Steve, real quick?
Sure. You always have time for a story.
Well, the defensive coordinator to University of Texas, when Darrell Royal was the head coach back in the 60s, named Mike Campbell. Mike was a great football coach. I heard him speak. We still did a lot of stuff at James Madison. I learned from Mike Campbell. Mike was a wonderful old Mississippi boy coach at the University of Texas. And when teams would go for it on fourth down, when they were backed up or midfield, they'd go for it on 4th and 1. I'll never forget he told me this. He told a large crowd this one night. He said he would tell his defense at Texas, so we're going to do something to stop them because they're taking a big chance. But he said, if they make a first down here, they get an Oreo cookie. He said, if we stop them, we get a big chocolate cake. And that's if you don't make it when you go for a fourth down, you're giving stuff away. And it really makes me mad these coaches do it, and it really hurts their team. Now, if you make it, that's fine, but it can really be the analytics thing. I don't know I can't spell analytics, so I don't know what that means. But
I can't either.
Yeah, there's a time when you need to go for. No one's arguing that, and there's a time when great football, but still, the game's about field position. You've got that will never change. That will never change in football. This game's still about. And if you study tape and you think you can do it on fourth down, you can do it. But you're handing that team a chocolate cake now if you don't make it. Because when you're backed up and you go for it and don't make it now, they're probably going to score. You're giving 7 points. You got a big bow around it. They're going to get at least 3 and probably 7, and points are hard to come by. But it's we faked. We led the world in fakes. Everyone knows we had a punt fake every week and a field goal fake, and I like all that stuff. And the 2-point stuff that Bob's doing right now, my son Clayton brought that stuff. We did it the last 3 or 4 years I was there. We did that, and it was that makes the other team work on it during the week.
You definitely saw it against teams like New Hampshire, who was known to do that in the old CAA days.
Sean was great.
He loved that.
Was great at it. And there was a lot of people in our league were good at it. The guy Maine was good at Jack Cosgrove.
Yep.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, that you had to coach in that league, but it was. It's interesting the stuff. You've got to put a lot of pressure on kids when you do that. And I'm not saying it's bad, and some of the guys do it, but it's a
new age.
It's just a different deal. And I keep my mouth shut. I'm if you make it, you're real smart. If you don't, it's a.
Well, Mickey, we don't want you to keep. One area we don't want you to keep your mouth shut on is your picks for this week, though, because they were popular last week. So I would like to go through kind of rapid fire, starting off with Ohio State's game next week. Who are you taking in that?
I think Ohio State will crush them.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be close. I think the only thing, every time I watch Ohio State, the only thing I wonder about them is how good their quarterback is. Sometimes I watch him for 2 or 3 series during the game, and he's a transfer from Kansas State. I think they wish he was better than he is. But I think he's a good player, and he's a great player. And he may light it up, but I don't think it'll be close. I think, Indiana had 20 total yards against Michigan in the second half. And
well, if Indiana does win, it might mean another $8 million to Kurt from somebody.
Yeah,
so we'll watch that. He may be backing a Briggs truck up.
What's going to be interesting, if Ohio State crushes them, does it knock Indiana out of the playoffs?
Yeah, it's definitely
that's what
some of the national commentary has been. What about Iowa versus Maryland, Coach?
Oh, I like Iowa. I think Iowa does I think that guy, he is a really good football coach. He may be the best coach in the nation. I thought that for 10 or 15 years. He was the head coach at Maine for years. He's a good football coach. I don't know what the line is on that. I wrote
5.5.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt. Yeah. Where's the game? Is it in Maryland or Iowa, I wonder?
Oh, that I have to look up. I don't have that in front of me. Somebody put that in the comments where it is. What about Vanderbilt versus LSU? There was the LSU. Brian Kelly's yelling at his wide receivers on the sideline. Probably not a good omen.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a tough family right now at LSU. There's lots of divorces happening right now on national television, and I'm sure a lot of kids want out of there. And I think the coach, the national coach, and I love Signetti, the national coach of the year is the guy at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
I mean, he is to beat in 1 year, to beat Auburn and Alabama in the same year. I don't know if that's happened, in this century. And they do a great job of coaching at Vanderbilt. And I do think they'll get some points, and I think they'll beat LSU. And they're really all playing. When you watch Vanderbilt's kids right now, it's like our kids did last night. You could tell all the kids were playing together. They were pulling for each other. The Vanderbilt kids, you watch their sideline, and you just watch where their kids are really playing together. So I think they will definitely beat LSU. But I mean, they'll cover. I don't know what the spread is, but I'm really impressed with the coaching job Vanderbilt's doing.
All right, and then our final pick, Coach, Army versus Notre Dame.
I'm sure Army will be the underdog. I would pick Army. I think they've got a lot to play for. So does Notre Dame. Both of them got a lot to play for. I think I would, without seeing the points, I had the points written down somewhere, but I think Army will. I think Army. I would.
Yeah, it's 15.5 for that. So
how much is it?
15.5.
I would definitely take Army. I thought it'd be about 10. Yeah, I think one thing that really, when Army and Navy play people, you have to be so disciplined on defense, and you have to be disciplined for 4 quarters, and that's really hard for these young defensive coordinators. They've never had to coach against it, and B, the players. Because there's going to be a lot of nickel and diamond and nickel and diamond and nickel and diamond, and all of a sudden they have a big play. And it's been very difficult for defenses when they go get somebody like Army.
Well, Mickey, my last question for you to kind of wrap up tonight's segment. Just your quick thoughts on this week's matchup in Boone. It's always special when JMU plays App State in a football field. This is what the Sun Belt again is all about. Two great programs who have a lot in common, getting together in November.
Well, the first thing is when y'all go down there, go out there about the 3-yard line. You'll see where my heart's still buried there on the 3-yard line where we fumbled that day against Appalachian. When I was at Coastal Carolina, I went over and checked, and it was still there in the ground. So I'm sure here 5 or 6 years later, it's still there. I never won at App. When I was at Marshall, we never won there. When I was at JMU, we never won there. It was so. There's no way I'm going close to that stadium Saturday for Bob and the guys. But I think it's wonderful. I think the weather's supposed to be bad.
It could be snow.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's November. That's the great thing about our sport. They don't set the thermostat in our sport. I think it's going to be a really great game. And I just don't. The only thing that bothers me is they're really bad on rush defense. I looked at it this morning. I feel like I'm coaching. App is really one of the worst rush defenses in the nation. They're like 120th out of 130 teams. They're ranked nationally, but they're throwing the ball pretty well, which is kind of we from time to time we struggle, but I would think our kids have a lot to play for right now. Have tons to play for. I would think we would give a great effort down there. I would really be surprised. They'll come down. They'll wake up in the morning. It's time to get ready for another game. And I would think Bob and the guys will get them ready. It'd be a lot of fun down there. I mean, it is a great stadium, like it was over in Virginia Beach, and it's going to be loud down at App. They don't like us. There's no doubt.
And it's their homecoming. So.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah. So, well, Coach, as always, we appreciate you, and we know you'll be watching and look forward to your thoughts. Hopefully another win to bring us to 9-2 next week and get your thoughts after we hopefully continue to have a shot for that Sun Belt championship. I know that was something all of us are pretty excited about to see Georgia Southern lose, but as always, we appreciate your thoughts.
No, it's great. A great win yesterday. Terrific. And we can't wait to beat those black and gold guys down there Saturday. It'll be terrific. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. We'll talk to you soon. And with that, we're going to get to a quick segment that is really important this week. It's a big week for the Montpelier Collective, and there's no better person than our next guest to join us for our Montpelier Collective Athlete Spotlight. And we're going to welcome Joe Showker into the conversation. And I can say it's a Montpelier Collective Athlete Spotlight because you're a former student athlete. Joe, I don't know what your NIL deal was when you were in Harrisonburg kicking for the Dukes. But Joe, you have done a better job maybe than anybody introducing Champions Drive and why this is so important, not only to the Montpelier Collective and our efforts to raise funds to support student athletes, but for the bourbon fans in the JMU community. Tell us a little bit about what's coming out this week and why it is so unique, especially in comparison to our first edition of Champions Drive Tailgate Bourbon, which we sold out. So give fans a little update on what we can expect to see and show off the bottle.
Okay, I will. So far, the project has been an incredible success, and we wanted to put something together that would help raise funds for the Montpelier Collective and the NIL, help us maintain our athletes. And we came up with the idea of some bourbon. JMU had a bourbon, a Madison Reserve by the foundation, and it was doing well. And we looked around and found a bourbon producer in West Virginia by the name of Swill Dog. And they had done WVU's NIL bourbon and had a huge success there. So after about a year of development, we came up with our first run, which was Champions Drive Tailgate. And the tailgate, there you go. The tailgate was a huge home run. We spent weeks just developing the bottle, the dog tag in tailgate. It's a J, the label, the graphic on the front, and even the bottle, the shape of the bottle. We tested 6 barrel picks and chose the top 3 for this year, and tailgate was the first run. Big success. And we've got a few bottles left over, and they'll
well,
be
stay
out in
tuned.
the spring with some creative projects. So if you missed out on the first run, you may be able to pick that up in the spring in a special package. So the second bottle is Champions Drive F-Lot.
Joe, turn that charm around. There you go.
So F-Lot is the lot beside Godwin.
Yep.
Champions Drive is the road that leads into the stadium. Tailgate was the theme of the series. So this one narrows it down. It's a specific. And on the back of each bottle, it says F-Lot is a place in Madison College and JMU history. Just off of Champions Drive, F-Lot has been a gathering place for purple and gold memories. The second release of Champions Drive Bourbon toasts to great times and generational friendships. Unite with fellow Dukes, raise a glass, and carry out the tradition by supporting the Montpelier Collective with every sip. And it's got a new special graphic on the front of the sign, and the label on this one is gold. And the label in the spring will be a little different on the third bottle. So
Joe, is this a weeded?
What a hit.
Is this a weeded bourbon? I
Yes.
can't say it like you do. You say it better than anybody. But is it a weeded?
Wheated.
It's a weeded bourbon.
Wheated.
So if there's a bourbon drinker out there, so they're thinking about what they're going to get somebody for Christmas. We're going to have a gift box option with 2 glasses, so that will be available on the website. What is going to stand out from a taste perspective between this version and the first version?
Well, the first version was a double oak wheated 107 proof 5-year bourbon, and it was an MGP for you bourbon people and brought back to West Virginia. This is from the homeland, ground zero. This is a Kentucky bred bourbon that's 115 proof, and it is wheated. My spell check does wheated like weeded, like DED. But anyway, it's wheated. And as many of your listeners know, many bourbon people know, wheated is sweet. It's smooth. 115 might be a little strong, but nothing wrong with putting a couple ice cubes in it or a little water in it. If that's your taste, a lot of people just like it like that. And there's a lot of bourbons on the market. And I won't get into the name brands, but I know Buffalo Trace puts out one that's very old, very popular. That's in that proof zone. Smoke Wagon and some other brands out there have this type of bourbon. So this Christmas holiday bourbon is it's a little different from the first one. And I heard a statistic from the folks over at Swill Dog, and that is the ladies, the females, the moms buy more bourbon at Christmas than any other time of the year. And that's because it's gift time and they're shopping for gifts. So that's a big point with this one. And the glass that's going to come with it is a gorgeous glass for the Montpelier Collective. And it's going to be a very nice gift package. We don't have thousands of those gift packages. We have a limited number, much more limited than the number of bottles. So you want that gift package, get yours early.
So the headline, if you're watching this video or you're watching it now or you're listening online, championsdr.com. You're going to want to follow the Montpelier Collective social accounts this week. You're definitely going to want to follow the accounts for a special video that we're going to release this week that I can assure you don't know what's coming, but you're not going to want to miss it. But championsdr.com, Montpelier Collective social accounts. Joe, I want to end with this. Both of us are board members for the Montpelier Collective. We signed on to be board members for a very specific reason, because we understand how important this is to the success of every one of our teams. The portal is about to open. This is how we not only retain talent on campus at James Madison, but also how we recruit talent. This is how we invest in all of our programs, from softball to women's soccer, volleyball, field hockey, softball. Really, this is an across the athletic department priority, and it's a priority of our new athletics director, Matt Rohn, as well. What would be your message as a former student athlete and as a board member to convince people who are watching this to make this a way that they give back to JMU, but also as a perfect choice for a gift as we go into the holiday season?
The A collegiate athlete works incredibly hard. The rigor involved in collegiate athletics for the athlete is incredible. My daughter was a collegiate athlete, and all she did was study, train, practice, and compete. They work hard, and this hard work before the NIL came at the benefit of universities and the benefit of marketing companies that marketed the university brand, but the athletes got none of it. They received no benefit from it. So the NIL, in its legal birth, if you will, was to give the athletes something back for their efforts and their talent and their name and their image and their likeness. So that's an important aspect of intercollegiate athletics. At JMU, it's an important part of our program, as any of our peers. But for us, it's even more important because of our alumni base. Our alumni base, when I was there, was by and large, it was teachers and nurses. And we did not have the type of alumni base that, 100 years of football and multi-generational universities have with all the money that they have coming in. So we're behind. In other words, we need a lot of donations and a lot of help in our NIL to just keep up and keep our athletes and keep their minds and their talent here versus running off at another bidder. You almost all of us hate to say that we're in a bid war over amateur athletics, but we are, and that's the nature of giving back to them. So it's not something that any of us can solve. So we need to embrace the challenge and elevate our university and elevate our giving in order to keep our athletes.
Well, Joe, I actually want to end on one additional thing because it's just important, and you've become a good friend of mine. And I wanted to just, it's App State Week. You've done just an amazing job. And as somebody, my day job is with the Red Cross. I've seen firsthand just how impacted communities in North Carolina are. And you stepped up again. Your family has always been a family that answers the call to serve. Just speak from your heart about why it was so important for you to do what you did in rallying the JMU community to support the people of North Carolina.
Well, when the Hurricane Helene came through, it devastated Western North Carolina, devastated South Carolina, came up through Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. And my family had four, I'm not going to go in all of them, but we had four unique, specific run-ins with hurricanes and frightening, just incredibly frightening. And we saw the devastation of what water can do to a mountain valley. We saw that firsthand. We went to Georgia Southern. We saw what the wind did, but they did not have the water damage down there that they had in the Western North Carolina. So that combined with our rivalry with App State, our respect of that rivalry, where we've had just epically great games over the years, and the fact that they're a lot like us. They're our peers. It's a good university. And I was just very compelled, and I contacted JMU, and JMU couldn't do it. They couldn't, a university can't raise funds for another university on something like that. So I called our contact downtown at the Community Foundation, Revlon Hill, and I said, can we just do this through our foundation? And she said, absolutely. And they were able to get a site up for a credit card that night. So this happened on a Friday, and we had our thing up on Monday. And we did a match, and we quickly met the match, and we had an alumni from JMU in Northern Virginia match that. So our first payment to them was $34,000.
Wow.
And then our next payment was around $30,000. So we have sent the logistics hurricane relief disaster fund over $63,000 that you all in the JMU Nation have helped us raise. And we did a public service interview today. We're going to post that to the WSVA crowd for a lot of people that are not on social media. They didn't know about it. So we're hoping to close that fund out by the end of this month with one more nice little donation. And they can go to the Harrisonburg Rockingham Community Foundation and make a donation at that place.
Well, Joe, I know this is personal for you and your wife and your entire family. And just, again, as somebody who does this work every day, it matters. And just, it's great to see the JMU community rally around your efforts to do this. And I hope there's some sort of special interaction with some App State fans this weekend and getting to hear more about the story. And I know whatever happens on the field, there'll probably be a lot of just joint unity in the effort of these two schools coming together. And I have no doubt their fans would do the same for us if we experience something similar. This is what makes this conference and this rivalry so great. So all the best to you. Safe travels down to North Carolina. And again, to fans, championsdr.com. Follow us this week. If you're not a bourbon drinker, you could still make a donation at MontpelierCollective.com. Many ways you can get involved. But thanks for joining us again, Joe. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Go Dukes.
Awesome. Go Dukes. And with that, we're going to bring on the other Sound Off guys for our final segment of the night. We're going to go around the horn about a variety of different topics. Guys, I want to go back to this weekend's game real quick. Just some of the high level thoughts on that game, because it really was a special version of an edition of this rivalry. Maybe I'll start with you, Taylor. Is there anything else in that game that stands out to you that merits mention, just because of the importance in where we are in this season now at 8-2? I felt like that 8-win milestone was really critical for me as we were kind of thinking around the beginning of the season of where we would fit, especially considering how many players we lost to the portal. But to get to that 8-win mark and have Georgia Southern, it just feels like this was a big deal on Saturday.
We're 3-0 in the FBS era against Old Dominion. I know Mickey said, maybe for recruits it's not a big deal. Well, for the fans, it's a huge bragging point. And another stat to think about is we have a better record in Norfolk than Virginia Tech. We're 2-1. They're 1-2. I think again that statistic that JMU pushed out also today, 20-0 against our last 20 teams from the state of Virginia. I mean, the Kings of the Commonwealth. That phrase that gets thrown around sometimes. I mean, it's true, and I get it. We haven't played Tech in that time, and we only played UVA once, but UVA's been running from us, and Virginia Tech keeps pushing the game back. So I think that game, I think it was really important to, it's now 3-2 overall. It's 3-0 in the FBS era. It kind of solidifies JMU. We were about 10 years behind getting to FBS, but we're clearly, ahead of Old Dominion's football program, at least for now. And I think the 8-2 moniker, I think I looked up today, there's only 27 teams in the country right now with 8 wins or more, and so in an era where there's 134 FBS teams, and, I'm sure a lot of our SEC brethren will say, well, your 8 wins aren't the same as our 8 wins. I don't care. I mean, there's 27 teams in the country that have more than 8 wins. We're getting votes in both top 25 polls again. I mean, you go back 5 years ago and you say, hey, we're going to make a jump to FBS, and we're even going to get some votes in one of the polls. Now we're at the point where just getting votes in both polls is kind of like, it's okay, but I'd like to see us ranked. That's almost where the bar has been raised for this program. And we've brought it up time and time again in our episodes that Coach Chesney, he has not had a full year with this program, with this team. He's not only having to put together this team in the era of NIL and transfer portals, but he hasn't had his first recruiting class. And as Stephen Michael sometimes pointed out, there's a lot of discussion of trying to manage the team and already starting to think of who's going to be here next year. Do we have to worry about a specific position group? So I think Coach Chesney and his staff to do what they've done in one of the best G5 conferences is incredible. And I'll end with this, that I said this earlier in the year when it really didn't maybe mean as much, but we are 10 games into the season. Every goal we had set forth this season is still on the table. Mathematically, we are still in the hunt for the East championship. Mathematically, we can still win a conference championship. And actually, I think mathematically, our college football playoff percentage odds are actually better today than they were preseason. So I just think there's so much to be thankful for this program and this team. And I want to give kudos to the JMU fan base, because not only did they show out last night in Norfolk, but one thing I noticed, and probably you guys did too, at kickoff, that stadium was half full. Now it filled up, but JMU, one thing at the last game we had the blackout, the Georgia State game, I just remember at kickoff, every inch of that stadium was full. So kudos to our fans for the job they've done this year.
Michael, I want to ask you about something else. Actually, two things I wanted you to touch on. First of all, is the play of Alonzo Barnett this season. From a statistical standpoint, we were talking before the game, 29 touchdowns he's contributed to now this season, only 2 interceptions. Statistically, he's got to have himself really at the top of the Sun Belt player of the year, or at least offensive player of the year discussion, because of what he's done, and especially to do it with battling some adversity, battling some injuries, some noise from the fan base. And yesterday was another game where he had some moments where it could have gone off the rails, but he stuck with it and makes a big throw in the second half that puts the Dukes up. Gets a 50-yard running touchdown yesterday. So obviously, once you touch on that, but I want to touch on one other thing that you mentioned on social media, which I thought was really important, is the Knight brothers, and how it really ties into JMU's ability to identify talent, and to see the two of them yesterday have the performance that they did was pretty special.
Yeah, no doubt. And also from the state of Delaware, right?
Yeah.
Like, when did Delaware become such a hotbed for us for talent, right? Cam Ross, the Knight brothers, Joseph Simmons, number 79, arguably our biggest offensive lineman, was, I think, the number 1 prospect from Delaware that year when we recruited him. So obviously just recruiting the Mid-Atlantic so well. But I think with Ymir and Wayne, you look at 2 players that are explosive, number 1, selfless, number 2, but number 3, like, you can line them all over the field. Coach Matthews, when he was the coach of JMU, talked a lot about satellite players and being able to split them out wide and throw in bubble screens and running them on jet screens and whatnot. I think that's what Ymir and Wayne provide us right now. And I talked about it last week. We're sort of like playing this like positionless offense in a way where we've got guys lining up everywhere. We have Taylor Thompson at H-back, and then he splits out wide. Then he's playing the slot. We're seeing the same thing from the Knight brothers as well. And I think it's really hard to game plan against when there are so many options coming from those two, when they're the focal point of the plays. I think it was really phenomenal. Speaking of options, like, I know we're talking about the Knight brothers, but I love that call that Coach Kennedy had in the 4th quarter to take that 35-24 lead. Call it what it is. Probably have to watch it again, but notice how he motioned George Pettaway, I think, to the wide side, and the linebacker followed him. So I think that immediately signaled to AB, it's man coverage. And they blocked it just like a trap play. So when the linebacker vacated that spot, the middle of the field was wide open. And I'm pretty sure that if he didn't go out there, we had a quick screen set up to Pettaway, because he had open daylight if we threw it out in the flat in that situation. So I think directionally our play calling is becoming better. I think we found out that AB's really good throwing the out. He's really good putting heat on the ball when he's throwing into open spaces. And we saw that a lot. And Ymir and I came down with a lot of good catches. Cam Ross, OD, the whole gang. It was really awesome to see. But going back to AB,
really quick, that throw though on the sidelines from Alonzo Barnett to Ymir in the 4th quarter to get us out of the shadow of our end zone. One of probably the better plays of the year, actually. They probably at the end of it, we're not going to look back on him. It's not a highlight tape play that everyone will remember, but it was as important as it's going to get in terms of just a clutch throw. He also had some big moments yesterday where he threw into some really tight windows, which was great to see.
Absolutely. When I used to play, we used to call those want balls, right? The quarterback's got to throw it out, and who's going to want it more? And Ymir Knight went up in the air, grabbed it, obviously, like, probably had a size deficit against that defender, and took it down to the ground. And I remember watching that play. I was like, that's the game right there. And then after that, we ran, I think, 6 straight run plays all the way to the end zone. So I talked about at the start of the show, we stuck to the run game, through and through. The offensive line dominated. But also with AB, like, last thing I want to talk about, they were providing a lot of pressure up front. And I think Coach Chesney talks about when challenges come up, we could either look at it as adversity or opportunity. And we killed ODU in the second half with opportunities when he missed some balls. But that ball to Ymir Knight, when he just destroyed that safety right up the seam, that was a game changer that broke their back. So shout out to AB, shout out to Coach Kennedy, shout out to offense line for reacting in the right way, right, in a positive situation. I think they did a great job on Saturday.
My thing on Alonzo to wrap up that segment is just the energy he showed yesterday at the sidelines, his celebrations, his reactions, and you could tell, especially in that final drive where we really kind of dominated from an offensive line perspective with the running game. The energy that Alonzo brought just fed into the offensive line. They were making the first down points. They were hyping each other up. And that's something we missed in some of the other road games. I didn't think the body language was as noticeable, but you could tell from whether it was the special teams guys on the sideline all the way through the defense and offense, they were dialed in. They were energetic from the start. And that's where I'm going to come to you, Steve. This team started fast. And I do think that was really a differentiation point in this game, is the ability to have that opening drive be as successful as it was, really was a big part in setting the tone for the game.
Yeah, I mean the play calling was very good on a variety of times. So don't get me wrong, but at our first play went for 9 yards to Ymir. The fourth play in that series was a 12-yard pass, an NFL pass over to the right hash. I mean, that is, and then we just continued to roll. So yeah, the way that we had them rolling in the first half, the block punt made it feel a hell of a lot like Georgia Southern 2 years ago. And I'm thinking, good God Almighty, what are we doing with, I felt that way. I felt the air go out of the balloon, because if we would avoided that, and I'm sure Coach Chesney will talk about it. And Mickey's right. I mean, 80% of the time you do lose those types of games. I didn't have that feel, but I did have a pit in my stomach in the second part of the second quarter. But the adjustment we made at halftime, I knew we could outcoach them. Didn't know what we'd get coming out of there. But it was obvious to me when they came out that we had a different look, because they warmed up right in front of you and me. We were standing right in front of the ODU cheerleaders. They were warming up in front of us, and the looks they had on their faces, it wasn't, hey, I'm yucking it up. It was, I've got a mean face on and I'm going to kick somebody's ass. And every one of them, you could see the look. Nobody was dabbing them up. Nobody was saying go. They had that look on there. And I'm like, ooh, this could be fun. And then we do the onside kick. And I'm thinking, God, why did we call it? Well, now I know why. Because we knew we were going to kick their ass. And when you know that coming out of the locker room and you have that type of swagger when you kick an onside kick and you got Ricky Ronnie yelling, F you, Bob, which I know he didn't mean it in a mean way. It'd be like me playing tennis and somebody hit a down the line shot or tried it, and I'd be, fuck you. So, but it was not a mean thing. But then you got to beat me. And you come in, you go 3 and out. They were in trouble. They were in trouble from the outset of the second half. And you watch Ricky Ronnie's press conference, and you'll see it and hear it. So I was extremely impressed with the adjustment they made on the defense. They had 3 defensive tackles in with the 2 ends. And what people need to watch, if you watch the line play, don't always be watching to say, well, gee, did we sack him? Watch them push the offensive lineman into the quarterback. That's what happened in the second half. Joseph just got lit up, and he got sacked. We obviously sacked him, but many more times he got jammed with his own guy getting rammed right into him. And there's nothing you can do. It's the worst feeling. It happens to us, not as much as it did to them, but it happens. If you get leverage and you can push that guy back into your QB, it's demoralizing. And you could see it on his face when I rewatched the game. You could see it on Joseph's face when he went to the sideline.
Yeah, some big play from across the line. You obviously have Kyrie Mans, what he did. Christopher Fitzgerald was having the quarterback run around the backfield. Eric O'Neill, another big performance. So a really great showing for them. Also, shout out to our linebacking core, who's dealing with some injuries and adversity in that unit, but being able to step up and show some depth. We're down to 3 linebackers, I think, yesterday at one point in the game. But this unit, hopefully we get healthier this week, maybe get Jacob Dobbs back in the lineup. But just a lot to like. Some really big plays in the secondary yesterday that will probably be forgotten, but some really heads up plays by our secondary. So lots to like. Another turnover on defense forced again from the secondary. Just lots to like as this unit continues
we missed 2 picks.
I was going to say,
100%.
multiple opportunities for interceptions there. It was great.
Yeah, turnover margin continues to be this team's superpower, and it's really paying off in a big way. Taylor, I want to come to you as we kind of switch gears and transition to this week's game. You have some notes in front of you, just what the last 4 games between JMU and App State have been, because it perfectly sets the stage for what we think will be another classic.
Well, Mickey mentioned earlier tonight, that 2007 game where we fumbled on a play where we lost 28-27 in Boone in the playoffs when we were in field goal range, and really should have won that game. So that the last play of the game was a heartbreaker for us. Then you fast forward to the next year, we're down 21-0. We come back to win 35-32. But, a lot of people, some of the diehards remember this, but some that don't, is the last play of that game. There was 12 seconds left on the clock. And, it's, do we punt? Do we just try to run the clock out? Will they throw Rodney out? Rodney Landers, our quarterback at the time. And it's like, all right, they're going to try and run the ball out. No, they pooch, punt it. And for the life of me, I'll never understand why that App State guy just sat there and watched the ball as 3 more seconds ticked off the clock. So he didn't have a Hail Mary or anything. But, so again, the last play of that game was a heartbreaker for App State, 35-32. Then you fast forward about 15 years. It's our first year in FBS. It's our first year in the Sun Belt. The App State JMU rivalry is renewed. Michael hates when I bring this up, but we were down 28-3. I'm about 2 rows behind him, and he's at this point just fighting with a guy literally half a stadium away. I don't mean like a section away. I mean like 2 sections to my right, and then the bowl over there, and 3, and there's a guy and him. But that was the most entertaining part of the game at that point, because I'm like, listen, this is just what the reality of the situation. App State's a good program. It's our first year. This is just the way it's going to be. And of course, the great comeback, 32-28. We win in App State at Boone. And again, last play of the game was Quentin Hunter. Not Quentin Hunter. Quentin, help me out here, Michael.
Q Reed.
Quentin Hunter was the new coach at Emory and Henry, former
Right.
JMU wide receiver. That's why I was Q Reed. I'm sorry, Q, to you and any of your teammates that are watching this. I have never forgotten that play. I actually remember that play more vividly than I do any touchdown we've scored that game, the hit that he put on him. But again, last play, App State's driving, trying to get the winning touchdown, devastating win for App State. Then again, last year, we all know what happened. College game day, we're undefeated. Goes into overtime. Still to this day, if I had a gun to the head and you said, Taylor, what happened on that last play, I can't honestly say he did or didn't cross that goal line. I just don't know. I think the way the call stood, it just had to be the way it was. But devastating for JMU. So you've had 4 games in a heated rivalry with 2 teams that were 2 premier FCS programs, have dominated at the G5 level. We're very similar peer institutions academically, regionally, geographically, both in the Blue Ridge Mountains. There's just a lot of similarities between these 2 schools, these teams, and every year for the past 15, 16 years in the series that we've had, it's just been devastating. So again, I think the text messages were lighting up last night in our text groups. Like, once again, the JMU app game has come down to what is going to be not only meaningful for the 2 of us, but half the Sun Belt is going to be looking at what happens in this game, because there's so many ties both in the East and the West. And so again, conference championships on the line, Eastern divisions on the line. I know we're kind of stretching, but mathematically, college football playoff, those opportunities, there's so much on this game. And last but not least, App State has moved their homecoming game because of the hurricane and everything to this game. The game is sold out, which I believe this is the first sellout since the hurricane, just from the infrastructure and everything they had down there. So emotions are going to be high. It's going to be an environment like what you expect in Boone. It's going to be great. And again, it will shock me if this game does not come down to the last series once again.
Michael, this game obviously important for so many different reasons. These are the 2 kind of flagship programs in the Sun Belt. Obviously a lot of recruiting battles going on in these 2 games, but the specific to this year in this game, this is another test for this team in a tough environment. So that's why I think this win at ODU for me is such an important thing leading into this, is we showed that we could win a game in an intense atmosphere with some adversity. That bodes well for going into Boone, but it's a much different animal, a much more challenging trip, and the environment that, let's be honest, this is their Super Bowl for the season, because it's been a down year for App State. But if they could beat JMU, that would, at least put a cherry on the top of some fans' eyes in terms of, hey, at least we beat them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what they did at ULM, right? I heard they play music all the way till the snap or whatnot. But if we thought ULM was loud, App State's going to sound like the big house, right? It's going to be adversity all through and through. Student section's going to be up. The town is going to rally around the program. It's going to be amazing, right? It's what college football is supposed to be. But I think what the ODU game showed us is confidence. Once again, adversity. It was loud there. There was ruckus. I'm sure the student section was saying some things to our players and whatnot, like that made it a bit personal, but we found a way to win. And we did it on the road for arguably the first time this season. It was a close game. I think Steve brought it up at the start of the program. We haven't been able to win the close games this year. We finally did it on the road in front of a rival, which is great. So I think that's awesome. I'll say this to the fans. I know it was big news last week with Caden Robinson, their star receiver, the one that allegedly scored the game-winning touchdowns last year. He's out for the season, but they are loaded still, a receiver. I'll give everyone a name, and I'm sure the coaches already circled this guy as they game plan for App State this week. Number 8, Dalton Stroman, 6'4", 205 from North Carolina. He only has 19 catches on the year. 5 of them went for touchdowns. So you're talking about a big, strong, athletic receiver. I think he's averaging like 20 yards a catch, that they're probably going to be looking to him. He's a matchup problem. We don't have big corners. They don't have Caden Robinson, right? They probably don't have a legitimate, or maybe a revolving door at tight end. I think a couple of guys left App State. They're going to be going after him, and he's probably going to be a big matchup problem for us. So once again, adversity. How are we going to react? We our corners have seen very good receivers this year. But obviously this one poses a difference. And Joey Aguilar, he's finally found out, hey, good things happen when I run the ball versus when I throw it in coverage. Yeah. So how are we going to stop that? I think Colton Joseph was a good test for us. They run a totally different offense, but it was good to see how we reacted to a running quarterback.
Steve, we have a user comment from David Mayer. Wants you to talk, though, about the importance of the Marshall game. Then we'll get to App State, but I do want to address the question because students are leaving soon. Kind of your message to the fan base about the importance of this game against Marshall, because it could be for everything for us in terms of the season.
Yeah, it's the first thing I had on my list for final. So it's kind of interesting David mentions it. Shift your plans. Get to Harrisonburg on November 30th. There's nothing else that you need to do. You've already had Thanksgiving. You're tired of your relatives by Friday, and you need to go somewhere and have fun on Saturday. If you're a student, you're damn well tired of being home and having your parents ask you, why are you coming in at 4 a.m. and cooking breakfast in the kitchen? What the hell's going on? So come back early. You're going to get home early anyway because you're going home early for the week. I think JMU's off the whole week. And if you're not off the whole week, you're going to do what we did. We were off the whole week anyway because nobody went to class. So either way, you're going to be off. Come back to the game. Pack this place out. We need to sell it out. It will be the biggest game we've had at Bridgeforth because it's for something. Yeah, we were the East champions the last 2 years, but it's got a star by it because we couldn't do anything. This is actually for it all. And whether Marshall limps in and they lose to ODU next week, which I think they will, at Norfolk, I don't care what they do because it doesn't matter. We got to beat them. So at the end of the day, that's the game we've got to win. We're going to win next week at App. I'll tell you in a minute why we're going to win that. I'm not concerned about the App State game because it's a great game. It's exactly why we're here. Everybody's going to say you're overhyping it. I'm not overhyping it. We're in a different spot than they are. And so Saturday's game on November 30th matters. So come back, let's rock that place. We've been rocking it all year. Come back. For the collective standpoint, pop some money into that if you can. We got Digging Dukes coming up as well. If you can give anything, and I'm not talking about big gifts. I'm not, we're going to get some big gifts, but at the end of the day, most folks aren't giving big gifts and you don't need to. We need volume gifts. Volume gifts of even something small. If you can do $10, whatever you can do, match our wins. If you can give, I don't know, if you can give $8, if you can give $18, if you can get $80, if we can get just thousands and thousands of people to give to it, it matters for us to be able to have that war chest to be able to keep these people. On the App State side, they're averaging 26, almost 27 points a game. They're giving up 35 points a game. And so if you take the Clemson game out of it, they're still giving up 30 points a game. They've had a rough row of it, but you know what? At 4-5, they're the most dangerous team at 4-5. They're a really good team. I don't care what their record is. I don't care what adversity they've been going through. They will be locked and ready to take us on Saturday. So, for you to be able to do that, App, we're born champions. We have it inside of us. And what we're going to do on Saturday is we're on a roll. And you saw swagger at ODU. You're going to see swagger squared when we get to App State because we're going to roll in there and we expect to win and we're going to win. It's going to be close. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling anybody's going to blow anybody out. We've averaged the last 4 games have been 5 points have been the average in terms of the margin of victory. I think we'll be a little bit more than 5 points. I don't give a damn. It just needs to be 1. Don't care what it is. But it's going to be a wonderful game, great atmosphere, good people. But for that 60 minutes, I hate your guts. I hate everything about you. I hate what you look like. I hate what you wear. And so we're going to take you out. And we're going to take you out strong. And after that, we'll have a beer with you and we'll have a good time. But for that 60 minutes, we're going to roll your ass. So get ready.
Taylor, I want to come to you real quick for a little bit of basketball discussion as we kind of wrap up the episode. Tough loss for the Dukes yesterday on the men's side at Towson. Headline on that game, that's a Towson team that was picked second in the CAA. First, they were. I thought I had read second. So they top team in the CAA. This is still a group that's figuring it out. It's something that Coach Bradley mentioned in his conversation with us, is that they're still trying to figure out how this lineup is going to work, and it's going to take some time. The beauty is it really is going to come down to the Sun Belt season this year to what we do in March. So it's all about learning those lessons now as we build towards what we still think this team has the potential to be as a dominant defensive group, that if we can figure it out on the offensive side, get more consistent shooting, more consistency from the line, has potential to really make noise in the tournament and be a team that no one wants to see in March if they were able to come out of the Sun Belt. Your kind of thoughts on yesterday's game against Towson and where we go from here?
Yeah, I think with the success that we've had last year, in addition to the success that all of our programs have had, I think the last few years, JMU fans are just not used to losing in anything, and so when you lose basketball games to Towson and Norfolk State, it's a little jarring for fans. I think Shane Metlin pointed out a good fact that when Byington, came in and won the regular season CAA his first year, we started out 1-4 as well. And again, we have to remember that this entire team is brand new, except for Xavier Brown, Gerald Pope. I think 1 or 2 other guys there that are not scholarship, but this is an entirely new team. And I haven't really, I wasn't able to watch the Towson game, wasn't able to watch the Norfolk State game, did watch the Ohio game. And, I haven't seen where Ohio's done since that game, but they were preseason number 1 in the MAC. And so what I would say from the little that I have seen is we clearly have the pieces to be a dominant team in the Sun Belt this year. Match that with the resume that Coach P's bringing in. You have to really still, I'm not even saying the glass is half full. I'm saying it's 3/4, 80% full at this point. I mean, there's just so much going good for this basketball team. And, really, especially you're talking about the Sun Belt and making a run there. For those that don't know, they've changed the setup for the postseason brackets for the Sun Belt, which really you're seeding. If you're first or second seed, you're going all the way to the semifinals. And then it just kind of goes back from there. If you're a little confused with what I'm talking about, go and look up the new bracket for both men's and women's basketball in the Sun Belt, so that the seeding's really going to matter. So I'm looking forward to the game at home against George Mason. I think it's their next home game. They go on the road here to that holiday tournament, which will be a good opportunity to see them match up against some good mid-majors. So yeah, and women's basketball, I want to give them a shout out today. They put up triple digits against Gardner-Webb after coming off a big loss to a very good Notre Dame team earlier this week. So I would say there's a lot of optimism around both basketball teams and a lot of reasons to get out to the AUBC this year.
Yeah, and again, for women's basketball, 4-1 on the season, a big win against Gardner-Webb, 102-69. This is a team that has a ton of potential and deserves your support. So, as Brooke mentioned, make plans to get to the Atlantic Union Bank Center on December 8th. Lots of great basketball coming up this month that these teams deserve your support. So, final thoughts, just go around the horn. Michael, just in general, anything you want to mention before we wrap tonight's episode? Lots of different directions you can go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this is why we signed up for the Sun Belt, right? ODU, Marshall, App State to wrap up the season. I mean, this is a November. Once again, let's make it a November to remember. And this is why we're here. Regional rivalries, teams that look and feel the same, teams that matter, right? Programs that matter. And I think we have a lot to fight for. I know we have to win out for a chance at the Sun Belt title. We need some of our friends from the West to do us some favors every now and then, but I think it's ours to capture. So I'll leave it at that. I think App State this weekend. I wish I was there. I wish I was back in Boone. Boone's beautiful for folks making the trip. Enjoy the mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous. I told John my favorite Publix is actually in Boone, North Carolina. So get you a chicken tender sub while you're out there.
Because you love Publix.
Oh, I do, and I'm surrounded by them now, which is amazing. But yeah, it should be a great game, statement game. I think I feel like all the adversity and challenges we've seen, positive, negative, it's going to culminate this weekend at Boone, and I think we're gonna win, and we're gonna figure it out this week.
Awesome, Taylor. Your final thoughts?
I just wanted to go back to, I'm the stats guy, and I love bringing context to a lot of stuff. We were talking about Alonzo and some of his success that he's had. We are number 2 in the nation with the fewest interceptions thrown as a team with 2, which means Alonzo has only thrown 2 and is second in the nation. Number 1 is Army, who has 233 fewer pass attempts than what JMU has done. The next, the skeptic could say, well, maybe that's because we're being so conservative with the ball. We are, 21st in the country in passing touchdowns. So out of 134 teams, we're in the top 25 of passing TDs. So clearly it not being reserved, not being conservative. And for all the times where there's a couple passes where Alonzo misses and fans are like, man, he's got to hit that. He does. And he knows that. And Coach Chesney knows that. But he has protected the ball better than any quarterback in the modern era, at least in my time as a JMU fan. And JMU has been QBU at the FCS level. So I think that's saying a lot for him and the job he's done there. Also, just to continue to reiterate, first in turnover margin at 1.9 a game. I believe Terrence Spence is still number 1 in the country in interceptions. I believe we are still he's number 2. There's a guy at Cal who's number 1 right now with just 2 more than him. But we're number 1 in the country, 3-way tie with 17 interceptions in the year. We've continued to dominate defensively, and I think we kind of touched on it, but I really want to hit again. We had a great defensive performance against who I think was the best quarterback that we faced this year. Mickey mentioned that. And again, that was without Jacob Dobbs, who is not only just a great player, but he's the captain out there. He's calling everything. So I think next man up, it's kind of a cliche term, but man, isn't it the real thing at JMU when we're able to go 2 games without him, especially the game last night. I just think kudos to the job the defense has done, and can't wait to get down to Boone.
Awesome. Steve?
Well, the one thing that we have in common with App State is our common hate of Liberty. I think I hate Liberty more than I do Coastal, and that's hard. So at the end of the day, we love you on the relief effort that Joe is heading up. Want to help you with that? We'll always do that. But at the end of the day, can't stand Liberty. We know you can't stand Liberty, so love it. So there's a couple things we need, folks out in the Sun Belt. Coastal, we need the Beach Chickens to actually nut up on Saturday and beat Georgia Southern. It's your senior day. Pretend like it matters. Play on that crappy looking field you have and win by a point. Don't care what you got to do, but you got to beat Georgia Southern. If you can't do that, don't show up at the game. Troy beat Louisiana. Be nice for you to do that. We got an outside shot of hosting. If we can take care of business and some other things can break our way. ODU need you to beat Marshall. Love for you to do it. Think you can. So we'll be watching that. But at the end of the day, can't wait to see my friends in Boone. And as I said, you won't be my friend for 60 minutes. I'm bringing my grandkids and my kids. So my grandkids actually, they won't learn new words because their mother and I'm sure have said things that I've taught her to say. So I'm sure they will hear me say things I probably shouldn't, but they're going to be loud and proud at App State. So all of you guys at App State, we're coming. And there's a lot of purple in that stadium this year. We're going to have a ton of freaking people at App State. Can't wait. Looking forward to it.
My final thought on the App State game is if there's one other way that you can help the people of North Carolina, spend some money. Inject some money into the economy. Go to a restaurant, go to a bar, stop at a gas station on the way down. Every dollar that you inject into the economy of that port of the state matters. It's one of the maybe untold parts of disaster relief that doesn't get talked about enough. But as many times as I've deployed into these areas, injecting much needed dollars into their industries matter. Tourism is a big part of Western North Carolina. So this is part of the Tourism Bureau. When you're going down there and you're spending money as a JMU fan, it matters and it can make a big difference, especially as you go into the holiday season as these places have been hit hard. And with that, we're going to wrap tonight's episode. Again, our shout out to the Montpelier Collective. Please stay tuned to their accounts this week. You're not going to want to miss the video that comes out, whether it's Tuesday, whether it's Wednesday. Still working out all the details, but stay tuned. We'll make sure to repost it on our accounts. Shout out to Where's Woody, Talent Corps, yourpurplenation.com, and Showker Enterprises. We are so grateful for the support, so grateful for all the fans. Safe travels down to North Carolina for those who are making the trip. If you're not, find some Dukes to watch the game. These are the special games every year that make the Sun Belt so unique, and why we're all such big fans of it. And with that, we'll talk to you next week, Sunday, 8 p.m. for another episode of JMU Sound Off. Go Dukes.